Alright, in this video we have this little USB thumb drive that we're just booting off my computer here, and you can put it into any computer and just boot off of it. So depending on how powerful your computer is, it just boots off this little USB stick, and you have over 50,000 games at your finger. Some of the highlights are all the Nintendo 64 games, huge arcade set, and then everything in between, like the Super Nintendo, the Nintendo. Don't get too excited about the newer systems like PlayStation and up, not the greatest because it's so small, but this thing is under $50, ridiculously cheap for what you're getting. And so let's check it out. Let's just see what's gone here. Let's see some emulation performance, everything else. You know, is it worth checking out or not? Let's find out. All right, another retro console. As small as it gets. There you go. There's your manual. Oh, it just tells you how to boot into Battlezera when you first start up your computer. Get a little keychain. And you get a little thing. Well, they actually laser etched the design on there at least. That's a nice little thing. It does look like it's USB 3 just based on the blue, but who knows? Maybe they're just using the blue as like market. Oh, okay, and you open right up. And that's, in comparison to my finger size, that's it. Right there. So check with your computer. You can see I have the USB drive plugged in. On this HP Omen laptop, I hit escape. When you start the computer, hit escape. Then a menu shows up. You go to boot options, or maybe you have to go to BIOS first and then boot options, and then it'll identify this USB and it'll say, do you want to boot off USB? And you just say yes, and it goes directly into Battlezera here. And so it's going to bypass your Windows operating system there and just go directly in here. And so the next thing I'm doing is I'm plugging in my Xbox 360 controller, and it should identify it once you plug it in. Or there you go, Xbox One gamepad selected. And so mine's already configured. If you have a different gamepad that's not configured, you can hit start on your controller, go down to controllers and Bluetooth settings, and then player one controls. Or if you have a Bluetooth controller, you can pair it up there. You actually configure it here at the top, controller mapping, where you can actually set all the what you want up, down, left, right, everything to be. Let's get started with this build here. Small little drive there, so it's gonna have all these older systems like Atari, Jaguar, all that fun stuff, but you're not gonna have GameCube, things like that. They're just too big a file. What are they? Let's see what they're advertising, because a lot of times they like to blow up these numbers. You know, 10,000, 100,000 games. All right, so 43,256. Now, as you see here, you know, a lot of these games you're never going to play. So like Amstrad, 3,000 games. GX 4000, only 25. Apple II, 400. 148 on Apple II GS. So MAME games. This is going to be your arcade games. This is where I think a lot of people are going to be hanging out. And you can hit the bumpers on your controller to jump down a little faster. And as you see here, no video snap, so just a picture, get the information. And here we go. And there's a lot. I mean, it's going to have all the games you want on it, as far as, you know, arcade games, Chase at HQ, the Mortal Kombat, Donkey Kong, Galaga, all that stuff is going to be on here. A lot of shoot 'em ups, run and guns, racing games, you name it, it's going to have it. And they work fairly well. Okay, and I have to say that as we're jumping down here, this thing looks a little bit better sorted than we've seen. When I say that, some of these builds will have, like, you know, all these Mahjong games. Let's go to M. Let's see how many Mahjong games we have. All right, so we have one, at least one, Angel's Kiss over here. But sometimes there'll be like a couple hundred of them, you know? So this is looking pretty good. You look at that, like you have all Mortal Kombat. You got two different versions here, maybe a duplicate here, but maybe a duplicate here as well. And but you have 1, 2, 3, and then it should have Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 in U. It does have I just passed Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, The Simpsons, you know, all that fun stuff. There you go, Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. So you got a nice little MAME selection, and just right there, this thing's pretty cool just for that, to have these old school arcade games that you grew up on that you can't really play on a console, and there they are. Well, you can play the ported versions of them, but it's not the same. Moving along, Atari 2600, you guys, almost 600 games. 800, 2700 games almost. 5200, about 100 games. Atari ST, 850. 7800, 65. Atari Lynx Portable, 82. Jaguar. So 67 games. You know, if it was me, I probably wouldn't even include these games. They're going to run okay. The emulation on this system, you know, you get a little bit of audio tearing, things like that. But it's playable, don't get me wrong. So you get 67 games there. Sufami Turbo, almost 2,000 games there. Wonder Swan and Wonder Swan Color, you got 100 back there, 100 here. Coleco, you got all of them at 146. Commodore 64, so 6,500 games. And I can tell you that some of you might play like 10 of these games. So this is where it bloats that first number of how many games are on this system. Commodore Amiga 500, 2,600 games. CDTV, 1 game. What is this? All Dogs Go to Heaven. I remember that movie. All right, Amiga CD, only 1 game. Alien Breed, good game, but it's just 1 game. Odyssey 2, 113. Intellivision, 149. Vectrex, 46. MS-DOS, what do we got there? So these are the shareware games of these 3 games. They're just like the first few levels. It's not the whole game. But you can add more games onto it. Or actually, you might not be able to. You're limited by the space on that thumb drive. So not as easy as you would think. MSX 1 and 2 and 2 Plus. Between all 3 of them, you got 1,000. Now, this is interesting that they included an Xbox game. Okay, Jet Set Radio Futures on there. PC Engine 298, Super Graphics 5. And this just reminds me, this particular company, or wherever they're making these drives from, there's a 2 terabyte version of this. This is only 128 gigabytes, so there's a way larger version, and then an even larger version. And what I'm noticing is, you know, they're using the same ROM sets. I'm seeing the same collections, things like that throughout all these. It's just what exact systems you get. So 298 on PC Engine, Super Graphics 5, PCFX, what is this? Okay, card game. Game & Watch, pretty much all of them that you see included. So Nintendo, this is kind of crazy that there's 1,900 games on it. So that just means there's going to be a mixture of import titles in here as well, with your, you know, normal titles, maybe even some homebrews in here as well. The Nintendo collection should only have around 800 games in it. Disk System, Family Computer Disk System 209, Game Boy, again 1,200. That means there's going to be some Japanese games in there. It's not going to be all English games. And but you're still going to have your Pokemon, you're still going to have your Mario. Let's just go ahead and double check that. So we need to go down to P. So Pokemon blah. They have a little extra blue in there. Gold is Jebel Edition Gelb. Is that French? Okay, and then red and yellow. Now, it's just the text in the operating system here. The game itself is going to be the photo of the game you see. Let's just, you know, Blue Edition, Blastoise over here. Click on the game, and then it should load up Pokemon Blue. And you got a nice little bezel here, and there you go, Nintendo. Just like when you flick that switch at the top. Feels so good. Super Nintendo, you got 2,200 games, so again, way too many. There should only be about 700. So you're gonna have some Japanese titles in there as well. MSU, that's cool to see. These are Nintendo games with an enhanced soundtrack. So you're gonna have that. Play Super Mario RPG, great game. Super Game Boy. So for those who don't know, this is like a little adapter you can put into your SNES. So that is working. Satellaview 123, Virtual Boy 33, pretty much everything you see on all of them. So this is cool. This looks like it is every single Nintendo 64 game, plus some as well. You know, there's about 333 or so. Wow, and they did include GameCube on here. Okay. But so you're going to see some Japanese titles in here. But you got, you know, 007 The World Is Not Enough. If you go down to G for GoldenEye. All the Cruisins are here. Conker's Bad Fur Day. So for those of you who don't know, these games, if you were to buy them at a thrift store or on eBay, they're crazy expensive. So they're on here. And depending on your system, like a system like I have here is going to run at full speed, no problem at all. Game Boy Color, 1,000 games. Again, it's going to have your Pokemons, your Marios, all that fun stuff. Nintendo 64 DD, that was a little adapter that went on the bottom of the console there. There's a few games there. So just one game, 4x4 Evo 2. Game Boy Advanced, 1,800 games. Again, look at all these 2-in-1 games. There's a lot of little bloating here, but there's not a lot of duplicates either, so I can't blame them for that. Like, they're just throwing them all on there. So you're probably going to be using that select button on your controller to find the game you're looking for, to drop down to the letter you really want, and finding what you need there. Moving on to Pokemon Minis, these are little Tamagotchi-like games. Have those. Nintendo DS, only 7. Okay, so they didn't put too many DS games on here. You don't really even have any ones you probably want to play. Maybe Scooby-Doo Unmasked, but other than that, yeah, okay, no Mario there. Wii, 2 games. You got Super Mario All-Stars 25th Anniversary Edition and Twilight Princess. Interesting 2 games to include. And then 3DS, you have Animal Crossing. Okay. And then you have 3DO Power Slide. And then you have some collections here. Open Beats of Rage is a, there's only one game, Sonic X Battle. And then Super Mario War is a fun little game that's, you could try out. You could find it free online. So it does have a Thomas Wave. So let's go into Thomas Wave. So Metal Slug 6, fun little game, Sushi Bar, the Rumble Fish. And then we got SG-1000, Sega Master System, Sega Mega Drive. Again, some Japanese games are going to be in there. Game Gear 406, Sega CD, only 1 game. Let's go back to Sega CD really quick. You got Theme Park, okay? Sega Model 2, so this is your Daytonas, things like that. Not bad. Sega Rally's on here. Virtual Cop 1 and 2. Virtual Fighter 2. I guess just Sega Rally. I guess Daytona on... I thought it was on this. Oh, yeah, there you go. Daytona USA. And then we got Sega Saturn. Only 1 game, though. Mahjong. So no Sega Saturn. Let's just go with that. And then Sega 32X. Pretty much all of them there. And then next to Sega 32X is Sega Model 3. I keep hitting the wrong button here. That's why I keep going back to the S's. Sega Model 3 is Sega Bass Fishing. Dreamcast, 1 game, Crazy Taxi. Naomi, 54 games. And I'm not surprised by this at all. This is only 128 gigabytes of space. These big systems like GameCube, Dreamcast, like they take up a lot of space, the games themselves. So you can't just load it up. You got to be mindful. So Sharp 68,000, you get almost 1,000 games. And this one's going to have a ton. The next one, 70 plus 6,000 on the Sinclair. So Neo Geo, you pretty much got all the Neo Geo games. So it's all your Metal Slugs, things like that. Neo Geo Pocket and Pocket Color, another couple hundred games. PlayStation, wow, that's surprising to see that they actually have 121 PlayStation games. Let's just do a quick scroll in here so you can see what 100 games there's going to be on here. Kind of a weird, definitely not a collection of games I would choose, but some of the games I'd play on here. So just looking at this, not digging the PlayStation collection myself at all. PlayStation 2, 1 game. Burnout 3. I was going to say, those are big games. 1 PSP game. It's really even, I think this is even a PSP mini game. And then PS3, 1 game, Tomb Raider Trilogy, Supervision, 66 games, and we're back to the start here.
Final thoughts on this build. For the price, you really can't beat it. Batocera looks great. It runs great. You can buy an old Dell Optiplex or like a laptop and just plug this thing in and it's running and it works great. You can revise some of those old computers you have. So I love the idea behind it. It is super limited, but that's what you're paying for. You can get a lot more for your money if you're willing to spend more. But I think for some people, they're going to love this as far as price to performance and what you get. This Barbie game was awful, by the way. This is how you play Connect 4. But earlier we watched PlayStation 2. This is PlayStation 1. We'll do Neo Geo. We got Sega Genesis. And then the last game is Nintendo 64. And you can see that these emulate just fine. I am shooting my screen from a camera, so sorry for that. It's not a display card like I normally do. It looks 100% good. It runs 100% full speed. But a lot of that's going to come down to how fast your computer is. But these lower end systems like Sega Genesis, Neo Geo are going to run fine on like an Intel Duo Core or something like that, like a 10, 20-year-old computer, just fine. So overall, I like it. I mean, it's obviously not perfect. With these builds, you often get duplicates and it's not super sorted out or whatever. But it does what it promises, and it's extremely cheap. If it was myself, I'd spend a little more money and get something nicer. But if you just wanted like Nintendo 64, for example, then why spend the extra money? You only need this, right? So it's good that you watch these videos, see what builds have what things on them, and then decide for yourself. But that's it. You will be limited by that little thumb drive. Unless you get an external hard drive or something and set it all up. It's a whole nother thing. So keep that in mind. This is not necessarily an upgradable one super easily. But anyways, that's what I think. Let me know what y'all think. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and we'll check you on the next one.